So tonight, I think it's a very special night for us. Of course, I miss Malaysia. I miss nasi lemak. I miss chili panmi. I miss tetarik. All those fun, flavorful things. I really do miss. And I thank Sebaris for arranging this webinar. At least, just a little bit. I can get a little bit of glimpse of I mean, it somewhat aids in the missing part. Yeah. All right. So my name is Dr. Jesus. I'm not the G. For those who are new, for those who are actually joining whatever session that we did for the first time, and for those who have joined, I know this joke has landed and it will never take off. But for the benefit of those who are joining us for the very first time, my name is Dr. Jesus. I'm not the Jesus that you guys know. I'm simple Jesus coming from Manila. uh, yeah, and I would love to greet everyone. Very good evening. So this topic tonight, it's very. I hope this is something that would interest you, right? You guys have seen that, like in this picture. This is what a happy road in clear aligner looks like, right? And when we look at clear aligners this way, it's plain and simple. You just give the plastic, and basically you just submit the simulation and then you deliver it to your patient. It's as easy as it gets, right? Until you experience some problems. And for those who have been joining us and for those who have been doing clear aligners for quite some time, I know that you guys share a thing or two about some of the struggles whenever we're treating our cases. Now, before I lay out the whole context, so the topic is all about hybrid approaches. Now, the thing is with me, I want to reframe the way we think about hybrid. Most dentists think of hybrid as a way to troubleshoot things. And some dentists even think that they're normalizing hybrid as if it's just aligners as tools. Well, that and at some point that can be true, but again, the approach in doing hybrid orthodontics or using clear aligners as tools or using your braces as tools. Now, the thing is, again, when we talk about hybrid, usually most dentists see it as a tool, as a methodology, all those stuff. Now, before we go deeper into what hybrid is, or basically how to think about hybrid treatments, let me just start off with one case that I've been working with Sibaris for quite some time. This is one good case, and this patient is basically concerned about a lot of crowding. Okay, and we know for a fact that aligners are actually pushing. That's the default. Now, the thing with this is most of us, when we see the simulation, we think that whatever we see on the simulation is actually the thing that's gonna happen. But again, during our onboarding session, it's a Venn diagram of things. It can be influenced by the plastic, by the plan, and the patient. Okay, it's the doctor, the patient, and the plan. So uh, when we talk about complexities of cases, it doesn't just boil down on the biology of the patient. It also boils down on the expertise of the dentist, and it also boils down on the compliance of the patient and the effectiveness of the plan. So when we look at the OPG of this patient, yes, definitely we have we have, I would say, a moderate to advanced crowding, as I say. We have here some impacted third molars as well going on. And when we look at the lateral sev of the patient, it appears that this patient is a skeletal class 2 with a normal position of the maxilla. We have a proclined lower anterior, right? That, of course, is also a consideration on how we're going to do our space creation. So having that said, and with all these parameters, perhaps this is the first plan that was, I mean, that was done for quite some time. Way before Cebaris had the very nice simulation before. So this is how it looks like in the simulation. As you can see, it still follows the three staging that we talked about in our onboarding, where we have space creation and then alignment and then finishing. However, because of some restrictions on the treatment, say for example, patient doesn't want extractions to happen, uh, you see that the simulation tries to do their best in creating that space. Okay. Now for the upper, that's not much of a problem, but I want you to notice something here on the lower right here. Here we go. You're going to notice that this crowding here is quite challenging to manage at this point, right? Now, one thing that one red flag that I always want to tell clinicians is whenever you're seeing your simulation, don't just see the movements. I want you to see how intentional you are on creating your space, because that's the very first step. Now, if you're gonna look at this part here, if we were to do the simulation again, perhaps we're gonna reject it, because if you're gonna see, this incisor is literally passing through that canine as if it's a ghost. Now, in the simulation, it can show you that it's actually aligning pretty nicely, but you know, in reality, when the rubber hits the road, that's where collisions happen. So one lesson that I find here is that you have to be very intentional in your space creation. And as you can see here as well, while this one is going forward, look at this one. I'm sorry, this one is covered by the lower part of the screen. But you're going to see that this one is literally just passing through that area. So if you're going to see those things in your simulation, some doctors might approve it straight away. I understand because the simulation looks good. But again, when it was delivered, I'm so happy that the doctor that is in charge with this case is very open to learning, and at the same time, the patient is quite cooperative as well. But this is what it looks like on the first off tracking. Now, most dentists would say that the plastic is not good, the plan is not good, the patient's not compliant. I beg to actually disagree. Now, the thing is, when we talk about simulations, it's the doctor who actually approves the final plan. Your planners are literally just doing it based on our spec, and the planners literally just follow what the dentist want them to do. Now, the thing is with this, we've noted that this is going to be a problem, and it has been a problem. This has been a persistent cause of off tracking for this patient. As you can see on the upper, it's easily being resolved. Why? Because space was quite intentional there. It's quite easy to create space. You can see that there are hints of space being created. Now, this one is there's a plan now on additional aligners, and this time around, they've added another round of IPR. I know for those who have attended our onboarding, this is one cardinal rule that I tend to live by, that I tend to avoid performing IPR on teeth on which the teeth doesn't have interproximal contacts within good contacts at that point. Because again, at the end of the day, when you're doing interproximal reduction, when you're creating your space for your IPR, you have to perform it on interproximal surface, not on the enamel surface per se. So I don't know why my screen is stopped sharing. Hold on. Let me just share. It stops randomly. I don't know why. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So when we perform the additional aligners on the simulation, it basically, if we performed IPR, even if the space is not yet available, and then we performed another round of movement. Now, this is what it looks like after the additional aligners. And as you can see here, when I walk you through the initial simulation, we immediately pointed out that space was an issue. Space really is a problem here. It's the very first stage in aligner staging that was quite not followed properly when we planned it the first time around. So I'm not sure why. Hold on, let me. I don't know why it just stops. Okay, anyway. Okay, right. Here we go. Let me just hide this one. So that, oh, I see. Oh, okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, so, right. So, at the end of it all, this is what the patient looked like. Uh, we know that it's not the best finish. I know there's still some rough patches that needs to be finished, particularly on that area. But based on the restrictions that we have, it's the finish that we get. Now, this are one of the many cases that we have reviewed with the wonderful team from the office in from the from the office there in KL, that there is something that needs to be improved, not just staging, not just aligner per se, but there is something that we have to recognize properly for us to deliver this treatment better. Again, if we were to do this case again, what I would recommend though is perhaps we should have just placed, let's say, a wire on the anterior levels at the time we're going to perform aligners. It could have been that easier on that sense. However, since we didn't know better back then, we tend to use up a lot of plastic just to come up with a setup that can be easily resolved if we change the modality a little bit. So the thing is, here's the issue with all the assumptions that we have with clear aligner. We got all the simulation we wanted, but not the results that we actually want. Now, again, maybe you're sitting in this webinar right now. You have a few cases on your hand. You're doing some aligner cases already, and here you are sitting. What the heck is going on with my case? The plan looks good. The patient looks compliant. What's wrong? I'm not sure. So, when you look at this case, or whenever you're gonna have those things, this is what I love about doing this education component, right? uh we have to come to understand that for every case there's always an opportunity for you to learn. And if we're gonna look at the different lessons that we've learned just from that case alone, we have a lot. Overcorrection strategies, your practice management. We should have thought about auxiliaries, adjunctive approaches. We should have re-evaluated treatment predictability. We should have looked at hybrid, mid-course correction, tissue reaction, and all those things. These are the lessons that we've learned just from that one case. Imagine if you have five cases in which you're gonna have a lesson. Now, again, doctors, the beautiful thing about dentistry is we are not perfect people. What we're doing in education from onboarding and up to this next module that we're gonna do with Sibarius this July, uh, we're not teaching you guys to be perfect, and we'll never teach you guys to be perfect. But what we're gonna teach you in the succeeding modules here in the core in our on the things that we're gonna do courses with Sibaris is we're not gonna teach you how to be perfect. We're gonna teach you how to foresee problems. We're gonna teach you how to anticipate issues. And the most important thing, we're gonna teach you how to respond to failures. Because again, to be honest, regardless of what system that you're using, if you don't understand how the tools work, you may be using it a little bit differently, and most of the time it doesn't usually go as planned. So let me reframe the topic tonight. When you talk about hybrid, it's not about troubleshooting, it's not about another route. Now, I would love to reframe the whole hybrid philosophy in 5 things that I wish I knew before I started Clear Aligners. Why? Because once I present you this thesis tonight, the hybrid mechanics now start to make sense, right? Because again, one night webinar is not enough to talk about everything that we're gonna do with hybrid. But perhaps in this short time with us tonight, what I can share with you are the 5 things that I wish we knew before we started Clear Aligners that eventually lead us to an understanding how hybrid actually changes the whole game. So let's go. Now, the first fact or the first thing that we've learned in consideration to our highlight is that aligner success is actually 80% diagnostic and 20% plastic. You read that right. And I can really testify with this one. Now, the practitioner always asks, can actually aligners do this? Right? You show me your cases during the onboarding or even after the onboarding. You show me your cases. And then you always ask, Dr. Jesus, can aligners do this? Now, for those who have experience doing some consults, I'm not sure, early morning, late at night, or middle of the day when you do your consults before, the usual answer that I usually give you is this: should aligners do this? Right? That's the question that you should ask yourself whenever you're gonna see your cases. I'm not saying that aligners are not good. I'm just saying that once you acknowledge the indications, the limitations, the issues behind it, you should now start to ask, should aligners actually do this? Okay? So I'm not sure why this one is just stopping randomly. Okay. Anyway, good thing I have a short monitor here. Okay, here we go. All right, we have a few more slides to go. Here we go. So the answer for this question is usually yes or not yet. I'm not saying no. Again, at the end of the day, your body doesn't know what you put inside the mouth. Your body only knows the force that you're trying to deliver. So it doesn't matter whether you use braces, clear aligners, any kind of appliance. At the end of the day, these are all tools. The thing that I want to explore with you tonight is, where are you actually positioned? Right? Where are we actually positioned? Where is our heart positioned when we're dealing with these kinds of cases? Now, in a study by Need and Weir way back 2022, they say that a view on fixed appliances actually provide better outcomes was a major influence on the decision for those who did not provide any clear aligner therapy. Now, most of the time, dentists who are actually going for hybrid, the first thought process here is the dentist who wants to go for hybrid are actually dentists who haven't been using clear aligners before. Now, the remaining 29% here wants to go to hybrid because they understand the limitations of your clear aligner per se. But the vast majority of dentists who wants to go for hybrid are not actually people who look for solutions, but they're actually people who are still actually skeptic. Now, as for me and our practice, I'm using clear aligners a lot. And the reason why I use hybrid is not because I don't trust my plastic, but because I understand the limitations of my plastic and I just want to reduce the total number of plastic that I want to use. That's why I want to apply hybrid on my treatment. It's not the other way around that if things don't go well, I'm going to go for fix. No. what's the point of using clear aligners in the first place if you're still going to go for fixed? My point here is that your view on better outcome should not be based on the appliance that you're using. Your view on better outcome should actually be based on the indications that you're planning to lay out. Now, whenever we're gonna do clear aligners, this is the usual setup, right? This is Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, most dentists who are actually skeptic with clear aligners are actually here. I myself have been a critic of clear aligners on my early days, and the reason I've been a very negative critic is because my confidence is so high, but I know so little of it. Now, the true mindset in going into hybrid is not here. The true mindset of going to hybrid is when you experience a little bit of issue as you progress from your cases. And hybrid just comes as you gain wisdom. Hybrid doesn't start here. When you have 0 cases, hybrid doesn't start here. Hybrid starts here. Okay? So that's a very interesting point because most aligner failures are not material failures. They're actually diagnostic failures. Now, these are just 2 cases. The first one is you have seen on a lot of our onboarding sessions. The other one is something that I've been working with for quite some time. Now, both of this patient have the same problems. This is in Tagalog, but in verbatim English, this is both are bothered on anterior spacing. The other is bothered on both are bothered on anterior spacing. So the first case is very straightforward. You see that there's a spacing here. Again, principle number 1 in clear aligner treatment tells us that we can push since the first part of staging is all about space creation and we don't need space creation for this. We can go now to the second stage, which is already alignment. Now, for this patient, this has the same problem. Patient also has the same problem of spacing. Patient has the same problem of spacing still. Now, for most dentists here, you will definitely think, nah, doctor, I just need like what, 10 aligners just to close it out and then I'm basically done. There's one part in history taking that you should actually be concerned about whenever you're treating ortho as well. This patient actually has some temporomandibular joint disorder on top of it. Now, if you're going to look at just the teeth, definitely it's a straightforward case. But if we're going to do this, hold on. Why am I stopping my share? I don't know why. Okay. Now, if we're going to look at this now, it's not, okay, there may be something that is baffling about this case. Now, this one, for example, one is bothered on anterior spacing. This one is bothered on anterior spacing. This one. While this one, however, has spacing, but one has a problem with function. You see, yes, clear aligners can fix this. But Dr. Jesus, what does hybrid actually mean? Most dentists think of hybrid as if it's combining fixed and removable at the same time. My thesis is this: hybrid is not just doing clear aligners alone, but it's actually looking myriad of scopes. Let me explain to you what happens here. Now, this case here, of course, we know how this thing goes. Just a matter of pushing the aligners, took around 13 steps, like so. And once the aligners are finished, let me just go quick. This is what it looks like. Right? 13 aligner steps, pretty savvy right here. All quite good. Now, patient is quite happy with the result, definitely. But on this part of the issue, this is where actually the first thought process in hybrid comes in. Hybrid in a sense of diagnostics. Now, this one, has a TMJ problem. You see that there's a deviation on the face. You see now that there are a lot of issues right here. Now, let me explain to you. This is something that I've lifted from one of very brilliant authors in vertical first philosophy, Dr. Kazumi Ikeda. And it actually matches the Dawson philosophy from Dr. Dawson. Now the thing is here, when we're when the patient closes, there is some point called the truded cuspal position, or some would say as the premature contact. And what happens is your jaw actually deviates on one aspect. Think of that same case, but on reverse. So the thesis is this one: can we actually achieve CR equals CO orthodontically? Now, this one, a study by Costea way back 2016, they examined normal patients, no appliance done, but they found out that CR and CO position often do not coincide in a natural dentition. Now, the question is, can we actually achieve CR equals CO orthodontically? Now, as aligners, as orthodontic treatment does, we can only achieve CR equals CO. We can only make it close, but not perfect. So even Posselt, Dr. Posselt, who has been showing us this illustration way before, CR equals CR and CO, even in normal patients, actually has this thing called the deflective path. Now, common thesis tells us that the larger the deflective path, the more prominent symptoms become. Now, for that patient earlier, definitely the deflective path becomes a little bit bigger. Now, the job of an orthodontist is to actually close that gap. Now, maybe if you can make it 0, good. But if you're going to make it close within normal limits, that's actually quite acceptable. So therefore, can we actually achieve CR equals CO orthodontically? Now, the thing is, if we're going to look at a lot of studies from 1981 up to, I would say, up until 2023, they describe the same thesis. Okay, they describe the same thesis. Orthodontics aims to reduce the deflective path within normal limits. That's the goal of ortho. We cannot simply just make it perfect. Okay, so in the context of hybrid, what would an orthodontist do? This is what we can do. The first thing that we can do is from this centric occlusion position, perhaps we take the bite in centric relation. Explore the case on function. If you have a semi-adjustable articulator, mount it in. If you know how to take your CR, just take it, and then from there, it's easier to diagnose. Now, here's what we did. This is the bite in maximum intercuspation. This is the second occlusion that we got from our scanner. It's the first tooth contact. And from that first tooth contact, this is where we actually 3D printed a splint. Okay? This is where we actually 3D printed a splint. Let me just try one here. Okay, let me see if this one works. Okay, this one, I'm just gonna use this. Okay. All right, we use a splint, we 3D printed the splint. Now, at this point, we did some splint delivery. Again, we 3D printed the splint, and as you can see now, the midlines are quite coinciding based on the scan that we just did. We just let this patient wear this one for 2 months. As far as I remember, it's 2 months. And then symptoms actually resolved by that time. And from the preoperative, that's actually my target for clear aligner initiation. And you know what? After 2 months, this is what we have. 2 months after splint, and that's the time I'm gonna start my aligner treatment. Isn't it easier to solve it like this? If you're gonna start with it with the preoperative and then you want to fix the lower midline, you might be doing a lot of dental manipulation there. It can give you a lot of sets. But if we're gonna establish that it's a functional problem at first, you know, this aligners only gave us, as far as I remember, I think around less than 10 steps. So there's a pattern that is starting to emerge. When you talk about hybrid, it's not just the appliance that you're using. It actually starts with the way you diagnose. So therefore, if we're going to look at it in this scenario, the third photo appears to be the easier path to do clear aligners. So the lesson number 2 is simulations are not activations, not the end result. So if you're planning to do hybrid, this is something that you have to come in peace with. Simulations are activations, not the end result. Because if you're going to look at the simulations now, or if you're going to look at studies, even on compliant patients, there's an average of 2 refinements per patient. Some dentists treat it as a disadvantage. Some dentists treat it as a discouragement. But you know what? For us, this should not be something that you should be discouraged. This is something that you should recognize. And this is something what we have, this is something that we want to actually see. This is something that we actually see in our cases then. Anticipate, as I say. Now, on the bottom of your simulation, this is what you're gonna see. There is simulated tooth movements and gingiva. Actual clinical results may vary. You know what? Most dentists are actually stressed, not because the aligners are not working. Most dentists are stressed because of the patients are stressing them out. Doctor, you promised 15 aligners. How come I'm already on aligner 25? We're still doing treatment. Because you did not give this simple disclaimer that these are just simulated tooth movements in gingiva. Again, as I've said, simulations are your treatment objectives. They're not representing the final result. It can only be as close, but it's not going to be exact. Understand that again, as we've said, there's a Venn diagram of problems here. You have your patient factors, your dentist factors, and your plan quality. Okay. So, in terms of predictability of tooth movement with clear aligners, Naum actually presented that in order to have that predictability beyond the scope of tool, patients and clinicians need to set realistic expectations about the outcomes that will actually be achieved. Meaning, hybrid comes before you even start placing your attachments, or even hybrid even starts even before you submit your case to be planned with a simulation. So my point here is this. Let me just show you one of good reference cases here. We know for a fact that this has severe crowding all over, right? If we're gonna do clear aligners, it's gonna be very, very challenging, and challenging it is. Now, if we're gonna think of being proactive on our treatment, perhaps if we're gonna fix this case, we could have just extracted that supernumerary tooth, and then at the same time, we could have just aligned it. The upper could have used with fixed appliance, and then the lower can go with clear aligners. But you know what happened in this case? This case is simulated with pure clear aligners utilizing the push, knowing that the upper would actually benefit from pull. Now, the thing is with these doctors, even if you're using clear aligners, whether you're using brace, you can still pull it off. You can still manage this case. Yes, you can. Now, the issue here, doctors, is are you actually using the right tool for the right purpose? Because if we're going to use, for example, clear aligners for this, 30 steps is not enough. 30 steps is roughly 1.5 years. But if you're going to use fix, it's going to be a little bit faster. Whereas on the lower, if I'm going to use fix, it's going to take a longer time. But if I'm going to use clear aligners on the lower, it's going to take a shorter time. So my point here is this, doctors. Yes, aligners are actually used for this case. Now, definitely, this is one of the first part of the mid-course, okay? There's mid-course going on. Why? Because, again, it's challenging to establish space creation and alignment because of the amount of push that we want to do. However, okay, since we're using an appliance that specializes on push and the case demands something that's pull, of course, mid-course correction is inevitable, right? Now, here's one thing that we should also look for. Hold on. Right. Okay. So again, at the end of the day, this one is actually just this is fixed on the first refinement in a way. And then eventually, yes, of course, occlusion is quite settled in a way. But again, doctors, refinements are actually inevitable for cases that, again, it's quite challenging. I know the results are good. I mean, we're not here to talk about results. We're here to talk about a thought process. And we know, doctors, that on the upper, it could have been a little bit faster if we're going to use fixed. But clear aligners can actually do the job. It's just that it's a little bit longer. So think of it this way. If I'm going to go from point A to point B using my Waze is going to give me multiple directions. I can go with a fixed route, which goes X number of minutes. I can go for clear aligner route, which gives me X number of minutes, or I can go to a hybrid route, which also gives me X number of minutes. Now, the concept is very true. When you think of hybrid, it's not something that you think in the middle. It's something that we really think from the start. So the concept of the second learning is you don't want to approve plans because your simulation look clean or the occlusion actually look good or the animation look smooth. Now, this is something that you should also recognize. Your software doesn't feel bone density, periodontal reaction, and patient compliance. Now, the mere fact that we're placing something that's removable, there's a lot of things in play. Patient compliance is going to be a very big factor. Now, I love what one of our colleagues have actually mentioned. If the only reason for approving a plan is because it looks good, the refinement stage will educate you, and that's Dr. Ruben. If you're watching tonight, this is all thanks to you. But the point here is, doctors, hybrid is not your safety net. Hybrid your is not your SOS or your first aid solution. Hybrid is something that you should have thought of from the start. Okay? Now, going on to the third lesson, and staging is a decision, not a setting. When you talk about staging, for fixed appliances, you're talking about leveling and alignment, space consolidation, finishing. For clear aligners, we're talking about space creation, alignment, and then finishing. Now, in the fourth principle, space is actually required for teeth to move. And the reason why it's not an issue for braces is because for braces, it follows wire inertia, and for aligners, it uses programming and plastic inertia. Now, in staging, again, as I've said, it's space creation, alignment, and finishing. This is the breakdown of all the intended movement that you want to do for clear aligners. So let me just show you this case here. This is a very good case of staging where there is crowding. There's crowding. Patient already had fixed appliances from before, okay? And patient had a very difficult relapse. And then, of course, space creation, aligner, patient opted for aligners. When you talk about space creation, definitely we can expand for this patient. We can procline for this patient. IPR is something that I'm going to think about because there used to be a premolar there. The patient had all four extractions here. And we just want to recreate that space so that we can bring it to a better position. Now, with all that thought process alone, perhaps when you talk about staging, you want to start with creating your space. Be as intentional as you can. Now, my question here is, if aligners, if I'm planning for expansion and knowing that aligners are actually pushing, aligners can actually do the job on the expansion per se. Now, if you don't want to use aligners, if you don't want to use a lot of plastics, there are a lot of options out there. You can still use quad helix if you want. But my point here is this. You have to set on a particular objective. If you want to use a palatal appliance, it's up to you. But if you want to use clear aligners, because we know that on the basic elements of a clear aligner assembly, push is a primary nature. We tend to maximize it on space creation. Okay? So this is, I mean, space creation, we did once we created the space, you did the alignment and then you did the finishing. Now, of course, of course, it all goes well on that part. Right? It all goes well on that part. So knowing that that is the staging of your clear aligners now, when you talk about hybrid, this is not a failure, but it's actually a sign of maturity. This is where the heart of the topic is. Because when you talk about hybrid, you're also, apart from the mindset that you have to go whenever you're going to come in, you're also going to talk about your biomechanical design and your body response. Biomechanical design is something that you control. First generation is something that your patient responds towards you. So this is something that I actually like whenever I'm doing clear aligners, and especially for deep bite cases. Okay, is this combining, let's say, combining a fixed appliance on the upper. Okay, what's happening here? Okay, here we go. Combining fixed appliance and then removable appliance on the lower. Now, if you're gonna look at here, instead of me placing a bite block or a bite turbo, what if I use something that can naturally separate the upper and the lower, and that's clear aligners, right? So in that sense now, for your braces, usually the source of programming is from your wire bending and your bracket prescription. But for your clear aligners, it's usually your force-driven activation and your displacement-driven activation. These things we're gonna deal with when we go to our July course. But just in a nutshell, when you talk about displacement driven, that's your step 1, step 2, step 3. Now the force driven activation is basically a different type of activation that you don't usually see, but your patient will feel, right? If it sounds a little bit vague, don't worry, we're gonna give clarity to it pretty much soon. Now, I love showing this predictability table. This is a 2026 study updated in January. Very good props to Dr. Adit Venugopal and all the co-authors there. And before last year, for a few years back, for those who have been seeing this slide of mine before distalization is the most predictable, and as of 2026, science of change expansion has now become the most predictable movement in clear aligner, followed by distalization. But nonetheless, both movements are still predictable. Now, when you talk about moderate predictability, it's your rotation and tipping. Low predictability is your torque, your tip, your extrusion, and your intrusion. So my point here, doctors, is this. When you think about hybrid usually happens on cases where you have moderate predictability and low predictability. For high predictability, it's something that you're gonna bet. So what is my point here? When you're trying to anticipate your staging and your issues when it comes to hybrid, space creation turns out the very first stage of every clear aligner treatment actually is the most predictable ones, followed by alignment, and then followed by finishing. And it makes sense. The staging actually makes sense because there's no point for you to perform finishing on the very first stage, because for you to perform these kinds of movements, you need alignment. And for you to have alignment, you need space. So it has to happen. That has to happen first. It doesn't just come here because it doesn't just being put here because the authors love to put it like so, but because evidence tells us that space creation should go first, not because because it has very high predictability. Okay, so like in this case, this patient also suffers a little bit from temporomandibular joint disorders. Patient wants to opt for braces. However, we have a very big problem on the lower. where if we're gonna place brackets there, it's gonna cause us a lot of problems. So the treatment plan is to actually use aligners to actually just push the posterior so that we can bring them to a much better position until such time that we can place brackets. So the simulation looks like this. Now, what we did in the simulation is we placed brackets just to represent treatment objectives on the upper. But again, as you can see here, we just used 10 steps of aligners and then shifted to braces, because the purpose of the aligner is to just create that expansion from the posterior so that we can bring the posteriors to a better cusp to fossa relationship. Okay? So, having that said now, this is what it looks like. Started from that, and then towards the middle of the treatment where we're gonna debond the attachments and then shift to fixed, we're now much more on a much better position. So my point here, doctors, is using your orthodontic appliances as tools with a mindset that starts from diagnosis actually goes a long way if you want to go for hybrid. Now, if you're going to look at this one on the occlusal view, you can see the amount of expansion that goes with it, correct? Before we shifted to braces. Okay. So like in this case now, this case you can perform extractions. Now the concept is very simple. This is a displacement. This is a force-driven type of aligners where instead of using aligners alone, you're gonna have to bring the forces towards the center of resistance. Okay. Hold on. You're gonna bring the forces to the center of resistance like so. And once you see it here, okay, there are power arms that can actually close out the spaces. And of course, if we're gonna look at it closer, definitely it can be done not with the liners alone, but together with an appliance. We call it hybrid on that sense towards the force-driven approach where we utilize the power arms as the one that's the pulling component and the aligners act as a counter moment. Now, from this one, of course. So hybrid approaches are outcome-driven approach where aligners and braces are just mere tools that is maximized to their full potential. So that is thinking about hybrid, right? It's not just placing brackets, it's not just placing power arms, it's not just placing buttons, it's not just shifting from one modality to another. When you talk about hybrid, it goes beyond the scope of treatment delivery. It actually starts with the way you diagnose your cases. That's why the fifth point that I want to share with you tonight as we close is thinking should always modernize first. Now, the thing is, doctors, when you try to plan it yourself, when you buy your software or when you subscribe on something, it doesn't really upgrade your thinking. If you print your own aligners, it doesn't really make you digital. And the moment you don't know what's going on, that's when you actually start losing. Because at the end of the day, again, as I've said, when the rubber hits the road, all the things that you've posted in social media, all the things that you've invested are pointless if it doesn't deliver what it's supposed to deliver. That is why hybrid is something that we want to go into. I know it's really good, but this is something that we always want to do. Mindset always comes first. Because at the end of the day, I always ask doctors who is driving. Now, in the Philippines, it is very relevant today because gas prices are skyrocketing. So everyone is buying their electric vehicles here in the Philippines. It has been a trend. And for Malaysia, your gas prices are really good. I mean, I wish we have that prices of yours here. But again, going back, Tesla is known for what? It's known for self-driving capabilities. And Time Magazine did it last year on February 11. They actually released that Tesla has the highest accident rate of any auto brand. And Tesla drivers had 26.67 accidents for 1,000 drivers. Most skeptics stop here. Same thing with fix up. Same thing with skeptics with clear aligners. They stop when they see that that for every aligner patient, there's an average of 2 refinements per patient. Most dentists stop there. Try to read further. In this article, the study attributes the problems to the drivers, not the cars. Same thing for clear aligners. It's not the simulation always. Sometimes you have to check who is driving. Sometimes you have to check, are we driving it properly? Are we being proactive on the route that we want to go? Or are we just looking for an escape route? If it's a little bit uncomfortable, I know it is, but you just have to bear with it. It's fine. You don't have to stress yourself too much. You just have to be you just have to understand where things are actually placing it properly. And yeah, and with that, I mean, with wisdom, you can actually with wisdom you can actually gain more understanding. So to close, I mean, some takeaways that I want to give you about hybrid. When you think about hybrid, you have to understand that clear aligners are 80% diagnosis and 20% plastics. When you think about hybrid, you're thinking that simulations are activations, not the end result. When you think about hybrid, staging is a decision, not a setting. When you think about hybrid, it's not a failure, it's a sign of maturity. And when you think about hybrid, your thinking has to modernize first. So, as we close, I mean, with this short time together, before I answer your questions tonight, I want you to master the thinking first. The aligners will actually follow. Hybrid mechanics is very nice, and I want to guide you every step of the way. There's one thing that for Christians out there, there's one proverb that I tend to follow for these kinds of things. That in the beginning of wisdom is this: you get wisdom, though it costs all you have. You have to get understanding. Wisdom is not enough. You need to get understanding of that particular wisdom that you just gained. You have to cherish it, and it will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. So when you think of hybrid, it's wisdom that is understood. And for a wisdom that is understood, it doesn't just focus on the mechanics that is used. It actually focuses on the aspects that led to the mechanics that was used. So, doctors, my dear doctors, the era of clear aligners is really good, and it's growing rapidly, and we really have to be very careful. We have to be very careful on how we're doing it. And I love that, again, Sebaris does these kinds of webinars just to enlighten us on how hybrid actually works and how we can actually optimize the way we do our treatments. So that's why, if I'm going to plug it in, I invite you on our July session. You can check out Sebaris' Instagram page. We're going to have a deeper conversation about hybrid approaches. It starts from diagnosing it to actually thinking a better plan on how to deliver those cases. And then towards delivery, we're going to talk about all those things towards hybrid, not just hybrid, but how to actually optimize your clear aligner treatment with this new information that we just have. So, yeah. For more information, you can reach out to our Sebaris team here. And I hope to see you guys on July. And with that, doctors, I end my session for tonight. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And happy Monday to all of you. So maybe I can start answering questions. Yes. Okay. So let's see. Right. So question. Do you have a question though? I think we have. Oh, here we go. There's a question here. Where to order Michigan Splint? For the Michigan Splint, doctor, I actually print it in my clinic. So you need a 3D printer. So basically, if you don't have a 3D printer, you can have a lab fabricate it for you. But again, when you do Michigan splints, uh, you should, okay, when you do your Michigan splints, you should actually, mm, you should take note on how it's done, right? It needs to have balanced contacts when the patient closes. It needs to have anterior guidance and canine guidance as you create that. Okay. Any more questions, guys? Okay. Okay. New questions. Okay, how do you convince patient to do hybrid treatment? All right, doctor. Uh, when we're doing hybrid, it actually starts on the way we converse, right? So, for example, for example, some of the patients that I've shown is I don't sell clear aligners as a system. I sell clear aligners as tools. And then I explain to the patient that if we're gonna use clear aligners, it's gonna take us some time to do it. But if we're gonna apply, for example, if we're gonna apply power arms on your case, we can move a little bit more efficient. If we're gonna place TADs together with your clear aligners, it's gonna be a little bit much more efficient. And if you're the thing is, number one, the issue here is we just have to be very honest with our patient. We don't have to promise the moon and the stars that aligners can actually do this. But my point here is once you become very honest on what we do, patient tends to understand that you're not just selling plastic. You're actually selling a treatment modality. You're actually selling a treatment plan. And I want you to position yourselves on towards that objective. Don't be sellers of plastic. Be sellers of treatment. Be a physician, not an operator. Yeah. Good question, doctor. Okay. Any more? Here we go. Good question. Wow. Okay, can we organize a session about how to get a CR to do the Michigan splint? I have to talk to Dr. Rahul, but definitely, of course, we can have that answered. We can do that, doctor. Perhaps in our July course, maybe I can just spin a few things on how to do a Michigan splint, so that we can somewhat manage that. Right? I'm so excited. Do you? Yeah, we can somewhat do that there too. Actually, it's part of that. Maybe not getting. Maybe we can do an exercise on July. Yeah, good thought, doctor. Okay. Hi, Dr. Fee. Nice to see you online. Do you routinely take scans mid-treatment for monitoring purposes? It highly depends. Well, take if you have the luxury of having a scanner, you can take scans in the middle, no problem. But for my practice, I usually take scans halfway. Uh, if I have after 30 aligner case, I tend to take scans on step 15. Usually I do it on the midpoint. Now, depending on the predictability, if I have a lot of low predictable movements, I tend to take it around every 4 months, around 4 to 6 months. I mean, not to send as replanning or refinement, but just for me to compare objectively. Okay, when you take scan, it doesn't always mean that you're gonna submit it for planning. It's sometimes it helps you it helps you evaluate whether you're still on track or not. Sometimes visual inspection works, but I believe Sabaris does comparison scan too. So yeah, I think that also helps. Oh, just to also add on to that question, usually it's 1.5 millimeters. If a discrepancy goes beyond 1.5 millimeters, it's not lagging anymore. It's actually off tracking. So might as well, might as well send it for mid course correction. Thank you. Okay, any more question? Okay, there we go. Can you give us the details about the course in July? Here, maybe I can pass it to Alicia. Alicia, are you here? Maybe you can give some details about the course. Right, here we go. We have a lot of questions here pertaining to that. Okay. Can you actually send the details in the chat box, please? Hold on, let me just ping them up. Okay. All right. Okay. Uh, Hi, Doctor. If I send case to Sabaris, usually who is in charge of planning the case? Well, they have a planning team there. They have a very good clinical QC too. Sometimes I'm involved, but they have a very strong clinical group there that does the planning as well. Yeah. The main point there is when you talk about who's in charge, for me, really, it doesn't really matter who's in charge. I really want to teach you tame how to tame the planners. I mean, it's like how to use better words in instruction. How can I instruct my planners better? How can I make them see it through my lens? Because at the end of the day, whether I plan it, whether my junior planned it, whether my subordinate planned it, if the instructions are clear, we all of us are just gonna come up with the same plan. Yeah, facts. All right, here we go. So for patient with short clinical crown, such as microdontia, how effective is clear aligner? This is a good question. Now, for microdontia, doctor, understand that aligners needs to wrap around. This is actually one of the limitations as well of aligners. In fact, short clinical crowns, you're gonna have a little bit of difficulty in control. Now, in that sense, for let's say microdontia, when you talk about treating that, one thing that I can recommend, and here's what I've seen in one of my colleagues here in the Philippines, they tend to perform diagnostic wax ups. Now, once they do the diagnostic wax ups, and the patient's already on a plastic crowns, in the case of microdontia, they tend to do aligners with that so that they can have bigger crowns. Now, in cases where you're not gonna create crowns for the patient to make the surface bigger, you have two options. Number one, you can switch to bigger attachments, or number two, you may want to shift to fixed on that part. Unfortunately, yeah, right. So I think this is gonna be the last question for tonight. But if there is one more, no problem. I can answer that too. But yeah, if you can ask, just ask along. Let's do our best to answer some questions here. After the aligners are completed, does the patient still have to continue with the Michigan splint for bite stabilization? Now, doctor, this is where I think we're gonna tread on dangerous waters. My concept of TMDs and my concept of splits, if the symptoms are resolved, there's no use for me for splits. If the symptoms are resolved, there's no use for splints for me. Symptoms are resolved, splints, I don't need that. So for bite stabilization, that's where my aligners will come in. Aligners are gonna be the one that's gonna stabilize my bite. Yeah. Right. Okay. One more before we call it a day. Okay. So we don't have any more questions at this point. I hope you guys enjoyed this short webinar of ours. We tend to make it fun. I hope you guys had fun. So yeah, and with that guys, I hope to see you guys in Malaysia pretty soon. And I thank you guys. And if you have any more that you want us to talk about next, just let us know. And we can't wait for you guys. We can't wait to see you guys soon, right? Even if it's digital and even if it's online, we're quite good, right? Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night and have a great week. Bye bye.